Now, up in New Hampshire, as you know, it's all about the presidential race. Congressman Thad McCotter from Michigan is coming back to New Hampshire. McCotter2012.com, by the way, is his website. He's a rock-solid conservative. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I was reading a piece of his National Review online the other day where he's talking about the great deflation. It is about the economy. Problem that I've seen thus far is that he hasn't really been invited to the party. Congressman, good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
It's good to have you here. So tell me what happened in Iowa, because I was looking on the debate stage. Did I miss you?
Well, we ran into a conflicting situation where the criteria that the state party of Iowa put out had all straw poll entrants in the race being allowed in the debate. Fox News had a different standard, so we had to scramble to try to meet that. They didn't take our criteria, so it didn't get on.
Yeah.
But as I've said for a long time, this is a marathon. You have to be tenacious about it. And you have to put forward policies that people can get behind. The beauty of New Hampshire, the beauty of Iowa, is people expect you to come to them, as is right, and explain your positions, and then they will support them or not. So I have to grassroot it out for a while.
Yeah, all right. So, I understand you got to grassroot it out, but let's face it, you got to get some media play. You've got to get up there on the stage with these guys so that people can hear you.
Well, that's one of the fascinating parts of it. You mentioned the National Review article we put out about the Great Deflation.
Yeah.
As you know, there were two fundamental failures of the last couple of years that affected our economy. One was the failed stimulus from the government. The other was the failed Wall Street bailout, failure of the markets. And so when we talked about restructuring and recapitalization of the banks and the ability of individuals who are underwater to find ways to keep their houses, what happens is we're not hearing any response about them. We're not hearing any response about fundamentally restructuring government. Instead, right now, I think what I like to call we're in the bumper sticker phase of the campaign, where it's all about who's on TV as opposed to what you want to do for the country. Now, as a Reaganite, I have the ultimate faith in the American people, and I think that when the time comes, they're going to sit down and say, well, who has plans that are actually going to work? And that's what I'm banking on.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to know what you made of Mitt Romney's recent decision and recent announcement that he is at his heart a Tea Partier.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm very happy for him.
Yeah.
I don't know why it would have to only be in your heart. I'm a Catholic, faith and acts.
It's a good point. Now, obviously, the economy is the issue. I think for the vast majority of people, some of the social issues are important. But at this point, boy, when people are looking at $4 a gallon for gasoline and the prices of the supermarket going through the roof, that seems to be what comes front and center.
Yeah, we have to make sure that the new normal is rejected.
Right.
That's where the high unemployment goes on, and all of a sudden one day you're told that that's how it's going to be. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. That's why I continue to go back to what I said about the Great Deflation. You have candidates running around saying they understand the economy, when they don't even understand that we're in a deflationary period of time that has grave recessionary effects on people. If you don't understand what's going on, you're not going to be able to fix it. And while I support tax relief, regulatory relief, and energy policies that maximize our resources, what you're finding is that no one wants to address the fundamental problem of the failure of the big Wall Street banks, their failure to get credit down to individuals. The contraction of credit is at its greatest point since the Great Depression. And they're not willing to deal with that. They're not willing to deal with the powerful entities, the banks, that have to be restructured and recapitalized. And so, to me, the economy is the number one issue in people's minds, and yet there's this dearth of silence about how we got here and how we're going to get out of it, and vis-a-vis the credit crisis.
Congressman, let me ask you about the Fed for a couple of moments here. We've had a lot of discussions about that. Rick Perry the other day said that if Ben Bernanke just fired up those printing presses, started printing more money, boy, that would be treasonous. Would you go along with that?
I wouldn't say treasonous, I'd say injurious. Again, Mr. Bernanke makes the same mistake that many people make, including the Tea Partier at heart, is that somehow this is a monetary supply problem. Yeah. It's a problem of the multipliers in the economy. In real people talk like us, that means that the small business creators, the innovators, the workers who are going to move the economy forward can't seem to generate business, and it's because of a credit contraction. Obviously, the weight of big government is a problem, but if you can't get credit to expand and grow and have certainty in the future, you're not going to do it. So while Bernanke continues to, it's like a car engine, he continues to pump the gas, and the problem is he's already fouled the spark plug.
Yeah. Let me ask about one of your colleagues there in the House, Ron Paul, who was with us the other day, and he shared with us his lack of concern about Iran having nuclear weapons. I would imagine you're somewhat more concerned than Congressman Paul?
Well, I respect Ron, but I fundamentally disagree with him on the issue of Iran, and that's another area where we've not heard much about in this debate is the comprehensive view of foreign policy that includes not only Iran, but also includes places like Syria. It includes places like Venezuela. That includes, obviously, communist China. But that's on your point specifically. Look, all options have to be on the table, but the surest way to make sure that Iran is not a threat is to support the Green Revolution within that country so that that regime implodes beneath its people's aspirations for freedom the same way the Soviet Union did. That also should be applied to what's happening in Syria, as the Assad regime, mirroring what the Iranians have done, is butchering its own citizens for wanting to be free. The expansion of liberty to others will help ensure it for ourselves, and we can do it without military action if we support the brave individuals of those nations who are trying to breathe free.
Yeah, you represent an area that includes Detroit. I'm just curious the sense from you and some of the folks who perhaps used to make cars when you see that the Obama bus Greyhound 1 was apparently made for the most part in Canada.
Well, it's an internationalized market. We get a lot of park supplies from Canada. There are American auto companies do over in Windsor and Ontario make cars, but the problem with the blunderbuss tour that we're seeing right now is that he's made a list of all these things that he can't control, and the one thing he left off was his own spending. So I would encourage him to expand his list and do something about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Congressman, I appreciate you being here. We'll see you in New Hampshire pretty soon. Michigan Congressman Thad McCotter. Now, he's running for president. He's a rock-solid conservative. His new piece in the National Review Online is something you really do need to read. I know we've got it linked up. If you go to talk1200.com, keyword Jeff, you'll be able to take a look at that.